are going to talk about chapter 7, which is on photosynthesis. To go on to chapter 7, photosynthesis, I am going to just tell you basic steps. So photosynthesis and cellular respiration are exactly opposite processes. Okay, one needs to be done to fuel the other process. Okay, they are absolutely complementary, or in other words, exactly like two different faces of the same coin. Okay, now here I am going to tell you, we've already discussed chapter 6, which is about cell respiration. So right now I am only going to talk to you about chapter 7, which is photosynthesis. Okay? The way we define photosynthesis is, photosynthesis is done by green plants. All of the plants which have chlorophyll pigment and chloroplast, they do photosynthesis. Photosynthesis, the overall chemical reaction is basically plants take up CO2, which is present in the air, plus they take water from the ground. It's a multi-step process. They use these two ingredients which are present in the nature along with energy from sunlight, and then from that they fix the carbon dioxide into glucose, which is C6H12O6, the simple sugar, and they also give out gaseous oxygen, okay, which we basically use for breathing. Okay, so this is your overall photosynthesis reaction. You saw in cell respiration that what cells do is they burn the glucose in presence of oxygen, okay, and they give out water and CO2. Okay, so basically if you were to look in this direction, the black arrows mean cell respiration and the blue arrows in presence of sunlight is photosynthesis. In addition to making CO2 and water in cell respiration, the cells also produce about 38 molecules of ATP, which is basically the usable energy inside the cell. Okay, now today we are going to take a look at the photosynthesis in a little bit detail. Okay, so let's come back to photosynthesis. Now, for photosynthesis, we are basically using two main ingredients: carbon dioxide, water, sunlight, okay, and we get glucose plus oxygen. Okay, now for our purpose of understanding, I want to divide this entire process of photosynthesis in two processes. Okay, one is where you are actually fixing this gaseous carbon dioxide into making glucose. So this process is called carbon fixation. Why it is called carbon fixation is because till now the carbon that's present is in the form of CO2, which is basically a gaseous form of carbon. Okay, and when we basically get glucose, glucose is a solid carbohydrate, okay, something that we can see. Carbon dioxide we do not see. Okay, so that is why we are basically condensing, compressing or fixing this gaseous carbon dioxide into something much more visible, tangible, and you can actually hold, which is glucose. Okay, so one of the processes in photosynthesis is, or one of the stages in photosynthesis is carbon fixation. Now, in addition to that, in addition to carbon fixation, during photosynthesis, what plants do is that they also split this water. Okay, so this water is basically split into giving you gaseous oxygen. Okay, so we are involving two steps: water splitting and carbon fixation. Now, what is the need for us to split this water? Okay, remember when we studied the cell respiration, where did you get your ATP from? What was the real source of ATP? The source of ATP, which is chemical energy, is actually the covalent bonds between carbon and hydrogen. Okay, so hydrogen element per se is really very important in generating the ATP. Remember the chemiosmosis, hydrogen gradient. So basically, proton, which is your H plus ion, is really critical in making ATP. Okay, what is the source of hydrogen in these two ingredients for photosynthesis? Only water. Okay, so water is the source of your hydrogen. That is why you have to split water, which basically really literally gets split in giving you hydrogen and oxygen. Oxygen, which basically releases into air as gas, and hydrogen, which basically forms H plus ions, which will be later on used in making ATP. And why do you need ATP? You need ATP as energy when you are basically doing carbon fixation to make glucose molecules. Because remember, your glucose is a high energy product. We are starting with carbon dioxide, which is really low energy, but you end up getting glucose, which is a high energy molecule. So to put energy into that high energy molecule, you first need energy, right? So what is your energy source inside the cell? ATP. And how do you make ATP? You make ATP from hydrogen plus ions or protons. What is the source of protons? Water molecule. Okay, that is why. Okay, so just to summarize your photosynthesis. Photosynthesis has two stages. Okay, first stage is basically carbon fixation, and second stage is your splitting of water. Okay, the purpose of these two stages are for during carbon fixation, you are basically making glucose, and in splitting of the water molecule, you are basically generating ATP energy, and that you are going to invest in making your glucose molecule. Okay, now we will take a look at this slide in detail.